Hello there, welcome to this exam preparation video. In this video, I'll be discussing 20 keywords that are standard to a mathematics examination paper 1. And I believe this will be very helpful and beneficial to you and help you to understand what is the expectation of the examiner when you see these keywords indicated or part and parcel of questions that you encounter in the paper. All right. So let us go through the 20 keywords. And of course, we're going to do so one by one. And we're going to start right here with the very first keyword, factorize. So usually the question will be factorize fully. In other words, you must exhaust the way in which you can factorize an expression and leave nothing unfactored. All right, so what do we know? There are 6 factorization techniques that we can choose from in terms of the given expression, and obviously you won't use all of them. Generally, it is depending on what type of expression you have. So there's highest common factor, there is grouping in pairs, difference of 2 squares, difference of 2 cubes, sum of 2 cubes, and your quadratic trinomial, where you produce a product of linear factors. All right. So this one has to do with expressions, definitely, and you must know all your 6 factorization techniques. Number 2, simplify, and again it will be phrased in a way that helps you to understand that you need to simplify fully or completely, all right, the given expression. What do? You need to use exponential laws, you need to factorize, you need to cancel out, you need to manipulate, you need to rationalize. Those are the different techniques that you can use in simplification of algebraic expressions. And the word simplify usually means to break down, to make smaller, or to reduce the size of the given expression into a small expression. The final answer must not be more complicated than your question or the expression that is given in the question. It must actually be less complicated when you are done with that solution. All right. So that takes care of that guy. Keyword number 2. Number 3, solve. Usually it's solve for x, that is the variable that is standard under algebra. Well, there are many letters that can be used, but usually we find that it is phrased like that, solve for x. So what do we find? Quadratic equations, we find inequalities, we find exponential equations, and other forms of contexts where we are required to do what? Solve for x. In other words, we are providing a solution for a variable. In this case, it will be for x. All right. So your answer must be for that particular variable. It's x equal to something, or x less than something, or x greater than something. You understand? So that is where we are at with keyword number 3. Number 4, solve simultaneously. What happens under that context? Usually we're given 2 equations, can be a linear or quadratic one and a quadratic one, or a linear and a hyperbola one. Or we have different contexts that can be assessed, or it can be an exponential one with a linear one, or sometimes you can have a 2-in-1 equation where from one equation you as the student must generate 2 equations that you will solve simultaneously and produce solutions for x and y. That is covered in one of my videos, so if you have not watched that lesson, I encourage you to do so after watching this one. All right, so solving simultaneously usually implies that you need to also simplify and factorize along the way so that you get to the solutions of x and ultimately y, or conversely. All right, so just be aware of that. Great stuff. Calculate, for example, under finance, you need to calculate how long it will take maybe to double an investment, how many years it will take for that process to happen. So calculate, usually there's a formula that you need to use and the calculator that is there to aid you to get to the answer, or by just substitution. If the equation or the expression is a basic one in smaller numbers, you can do that process mentally as well and get to the correct answer. All right, so your answer here must be a numerical value when you calculate something. Okay. Evaluate is preceded by analysis of what you're given. For instance, we can take a sigma notation, right? If you're given a sigma notation, you need to understand and know, am I given an arithmetic series? Or is it a geometric series? Or is it a quadratic series? And how many terms in this series that I'm working in? Is it 10 terms? Is it 15 terms? Is it 70 terms? All right, remember your upper limit and your lower limit gives you an indication of that and can help you to determine the number of terms in sigma notation. So evaluate means you need to end up with a number to find the value of. Remember, sigma means what? Sum or summation of a certain number of terms. So that is where we are with evaluate. Determine here there are two possibilities. The solution can be an expression, or similar to this one, calculate. Your solution can be a number. For example, determine the general formula of a geometric sequence. Determine the general formula of a quadratic sequence. So it will be an expression in that case, but you can also determine the values of x where f is increasing. So it will be an inequality with a numerical value for x. All right, so in interval notation or inequality notation. So determine can take those two forms. Great stuff. Write down. So when the question starts like this, write down, you just have to write down. It's usually an obvious solution and an obvious answer that everybody can see. Well, it is by inspection, or it's just a recall question, or it's an answer that you can pick up from the sketch or from the given information. So you just have to write it down in response to such a question. Usually a 1 mark or a 2 mark question, not more than that, because it is that obvious. State, similar to write down, is just a synonym there that is used to state something. Means you produce a statement that explains something or that supports your answer or things like that. All right, so you are just producing a statement. Hence is very common. Usually you will see it a lot in exam papers, and it's a follow-up question that says, from your previous solution, from your previous solutions, sometimes use that combination of solutions or that solution to answer this current question, right? So it's a follow-up question based on what you've done in the previous question or questions. Okay, that is taking care of keyword number 10. Number 11, explain, motivate, substantiate. So here you're going to explain your position towards a question. Why did you say yes? Why did you say no? Or why do you say the function is increasing? Or why do you say concavity changes at this point? Or here you motivate, you substantiate mathematically to just support your position towards a question that takes care of that guy. Number 12 and 13, they are the same. You show that, you prove that. Usually, you're given a statement that you must show or a statement that you must prove that it is so. Okay, you do not start with what you must show or what you must prove. You must create a method and a process mathematically that will lead you finally to the given statement to show that indeed it is true. For example, in identities, right, you must prove that the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side. But you cannot go straight from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. You must generate some mathematical processes this side to eventually get to the other side. All right, great stuff. That takes care of that and that guy. Number 14, without using a calculator, you may be asked to simplify an expression. So this is where you put your calculator aside and you create some mathematical processes and techniques to get to the solution of such a question. This is where the examiner wants to see your maths capabilities, and what you can do with a complex expression or an equation is basically centered around simplification. And this is closely linked to that, because then you're going to be using principles, exponential laws, and properties of radicals. for instance, to break down, to simplify, cancel out terms, add like terms and things like that, so that you are able to get to the solution of such a question. All right, great stuff. Draw or sketch. Under functions, usually you are asked to sketch that parabola, sketch that hyperbola, sketch that exponential function, and sketch the inverses of them as well, and see the relationships. So what do we need to indicate? Intercepts, asymptotes, axis of symmetry, turning points. Those are the standard aspects under keywords that contain, under questions that contain these keywords, where you draw, you sketch the graph of a particular function. And the follow-up question would be interpretation of the graph. So after you produce the sketch, use the sketch or use the graph to answer questions that are based on the graph. For example, where are the points of intersection? Where is the turning point? Where is the graph increasing? Where is the graph decreasing? All right. Where is it intersecting the y-axis? So you need to be able to see those aspects on the sketch itself or on your drawing. Well, that speaks to graph interpretation. All right, great stuff. Number 17, represent the info. For example, under probability, we are given in bullet points different events that take place, and you are asked to represent that information in a Venn diagram, or in a tree diagram, or in a contingency table. So you need to know all those three mediums in which you may be asked to represent that information in. All right, so that is where we are with keyword number 17. Keyword number 18, describing words. For example, transformation of functions. F of x is given in equation format, and you are also given this new function h of x given in equation format as well, and you are asked to describe in words, how did we transform f to form this new function called h? All right, and obviously you need to be very effective when it comes to transformation of function, reflection, translation, and things like that. Great stuff. 19, the last two keywords, 19 and 20, for which values of x. Usually this pertains to functions. It can also be on the nature of roots, where roots obviously give us the x-intercepts, and whether or not, yes, that function intersects the x-axis or not. This is basically a numerical value that you provide that satisfies that equation or that inequality. The question can be find values of x for which f of x is greater than g of x, or f of x is equal to h of x. You need to be understanding that you are looking for values of x and not y. Okay, great stuff. Number 20, rewrite. If you're given the equation of a parabola in standard format, you may be asked to rewrite that equation in turning point format, and there will be questions based on that particular format that you have just written, so that you are able to get the correct answer. Right, for example, get the coordinates of the turning point. It will come from the turning point format that you would have produced in response to that question. Great stuff, guys. So basically, this is really the keywords that you will find in exam paper 1 for mathematics, and I believe that this was very helpful. And as you can see, there are ticks everywhere, and that is what I wish for you, that you get as many ticks as possible in your mathematics paper 1. And yes, I wish you excellence and possibly get that distinction. And it's really not that difficult, as long as you know your stuff, you know how to interpret keywords, you know what they mean, and therefore what is the expectation of you, and therefore you follow what you have just learned in this video. Thank you very much. Look out for the discussion of paper 2 keywords, and once you have this one and paper 2 discussion, you will be well set and ready for your examinations. Thank you very much for tuning in. See you next time. Sharp, sharp.